Alright. BCA-101. It is 16th. Okay. Wednesday. We started talking talked about communications. I talked clear back in 1876 in Western Union. We had telegraph. 1900s, AT&T was formed as a monopoly. I don't know if I spelled that right, Ma Bell. And that existed until 1984. I believe is about the date. And then it was split up into eight different groups, and those groups eventually morphed into some of the major phone companies we have today, like Verizon. And one of those groups got the old AT&T name and so forth. Then we had all these, like CLTel, Clear Lake Telephone, or Omnitel, and so forth, and all these small phone companies then developed, for example, in the areas, and now we have the system we have. We talked a little bit about like the brick and tile building. There's a floor in there somewhere where a lot of this communications all come in, and then they leave on some major line out. And so that exists a lot in our country, places where funneled together. And the reason we mention it is later on we'll talk about that when we talk about security. Okay, we highlighted some things. We talked today then about the tier 1 providers, like Verizon, AT&T, and so forth. The major, and they exchange communications at no fee. And then we get tier 2 providers that will buy a certain amount of bandwidth into the tier 1 and then distribute that. For example, MediaCom, they have a connection into the tier 1 and then they divide that up to their customers. We also talked about when information goes in to a network like this, we talked about how the packets are switched through the internet. They work their way through. So, like when you have a connection and you leave, let's say here from your house, and goes in, comes to the server here on campus, here's our server on campus, it distributes and those packets come in, work their way through the internet, and then come here and then they get returned. They don't go in one straight line. They might go different ways once they're in the internet. That's what makes it so efficient, makes it work so well. Then we talked about, I overemphasized again, private addresses. And so if you're in a coffee shop and you would get then a private or logical address, then that would be converted into a shared public address supplied by the ISP, and that's what would be used in the internet. When the information comes back, the coffee shop keeps track of that, and it goes to your device based on a physical address, or somebody else's device, or somebody else's. Here, it's based on their physical addresses when the signal comes back in. That private address is matched up with that public address, and then they're kept track of by port numbers. So this one would have a different port number than this person, than this person. So when they come back, they can split it back up and get the information back to the right location. All right. We talked a little bit more about mail servers, storing that mail, and we did an example in class. All right, and again, one more time, we talked about If we're in the classroom on a PC, we can access that server using the private address in the room. If we're coming in from the internet somewhere, it's like at home, then we need to use this public address. That public address is connected to this private address. It's actually done in a router in our area. They're matched up. Alright. Then we talked a bunch of terms. We talked protocols again. For example, you have a browser. You type in a URL to go to a website. It uses DNS to convert that to an IP address. It gets marked with your MAC address, and out it goes. Then eventually it works its way up to a website. And we're using like these protocols for the World Wide Web. Browser sends the HTML back in packets, and it could be multiple packets depending on how big the page is, and they come back, access your machine through your Mac, IP address up to your browser, and reassembles those packets so you can see the web page. We did an example. We looked up I told them they went to my website, michaeldirksen.com, and pulled that up. We talked about the domain names again, and we had them look up, the students looked up some domain names on GoDaddy. I looked up Mike Dirksen, and it was already taken. Well, that's because I own it. If somebody else owns it, you can use a broker at one of these services, and they will find the owner of the domain name that you want, and then you can broker a deal. They get a percentage of the deal, and you try to get it sold. There's some people doing that on the internet. They'll get names and try to sell them to people, or in some cases we talked about blackmailing people. You get a certain name, is like if I could get a famous name, and I could put up a website, about something that wasn't true or was bad about the person, and it'd be hard for the person to do anything about it. We talked about the internet being an open system, not really controlled by anybody. We talked about an intranet, that's like an internet within a business. For example, at the college, my NIACC portal, you have to log in, so it's private, not anybody can use it, and it's a way to disperse information within the college or any business. If you want an external company to access it, you can create an extranet. It's like an intranet, but you allow just certain companies to be able to access it. Alright, and so we also were working on the project today. That's it.